And welcome, you're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1783 AN. Today's date is February 4th, 2019, and the title of the episode is Remove the Globalist Systems, then Control the Central Bank. Now, before I get started, I want you to take a look at this. This is a coin that everyone is raving about. It's a Morgan silver dollar, a runaway success in its day and about to do the same now. It's the superstar of the collectible world. One sold for $587,500 not so long ago. Once you start and get the collecting bug, you'll be dreaming of these in your sleep. Discover the thrill, pleasure, and joy of unearthing these rare coins. Noble Gold can start you off with one of their specially selected collector's choice coins. Take the first steps to a lucrative and absorbing hobby, and go to historicsilvercoins.com and save $5 per coin by using the code X22 today. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, something very interesting is happening in Venezuela, and we've been talking about Venezuela, where there might be something happening in the background, and it's starting to look like it has to do with gold. Remember, Q has been telling us that gold is going to be bringing down the Fed, which means gold is going to be used not just here in the United States, but around the world. Trump has been chipping away at the globalist system. He needs to unwind everything the central banks have done over the many, many years. He can't do this by snapping his finger and just having it done. He has to take one piece at a time. And we've been watching the World Trade Organization, the World Bank, the Fed, and the rest, where he's hitting each and every one of them. And we're going to be talking about that a little bit later in this report. But first, I wanted to start off with how the economy is doing. And I know the numbers that Trump has been putting out there, the government's been putting out there. And remember, there are two separate things happening here. There's one, which is the illusion for the people, for the mainstream media, for the deep state, to make everyone feel like the economy's doing better. Now, the economy is doing better in the fact that Trump is bringing back manufacturing jobs, removing the globalist system, preparing us for the transition. He needs to keep the illusion alive that the economy is doing well. This way, the central bankers, the deep state, the mainstream media have a difficult time pointing to him as the problem of the economy. This is why they came out with their prediction that in 2020 there's going to be a recession. This is why Q has been telling us, don't worry, we know their plan, this is not going to happen. Now, they were pushing the idea that it was tariffs and everything that he was doing, but we know that they're nervous and afraid that if he, or when he undoes everything that they've done, we're going to see incredible times. They don't want this to happen. The central bankers don't want that to happen. Can you imagine a world where the world is doing fantastically economically? People are working together. People like each other. There's peace in the world, and everyone is doing well. Do you think the central banks are going to like this? Do you think the deep state? Do you think the central banks are going to like this? Do you think the deep state likes this? No. This is what they're trying to stop. Because once the people get a taste of just a little bit of this, guess what? Do you think they're ever going to want to go back to a central banking system? Absolutely not. So we have two things happening here. We have the real economy, which we've been reporting on, and then we have Trump confusing the deep state, confusing the central bank, all at the same time. Now, as more and more people come back to the United States, as companies come back to the United States, as he rewrites NAFTA, gets rid of TPP, and rewrites other trade deals, the central bank economy, remember, this is not Trump's economy, this is a central bank economy, and we're not just seeing it fall apart here in the United States, we're seeing it fall apart around the world. And the central banks are stuck. They don't know how to explain this. They're trying to point the finger in every direction, back finger in every direction, but they're the ones who are responsible for all this. So the people's economy here in the United States, it is deteriorating very, very quickly. If we look at factory orders back in October and November, we're seeing that factory orders, they have tumbled, they declined. And they're not improving at this time. Actually, we should have seen factory orders doing really well during this time period, but we're starting to see factory orders decline in this area. Now, What's going to happen, and which I do believe is going to happen, is as we move through this transition and as Trump keeps the illusion alive, we're going to see the people's economy deteriorate further and further and further. And we're going to see the illusion, that economy with the stock market, with unemployment, with GDP, we're going to see that improve. So we're going to see two things happening at the same exact time. And the reason why this is happening is because we're going to be moving out of the central bank economy. Now, very interestingly, we know that the central bankers, if we go back in time, they were planning to move the system out of the United States. And this is why they've been trying to bring the United States down to a third world level. And when we look at the economy, we can see back in 1971, when we came off the gold standard, we had the neocons, we had the deep state, we had the central bankers pushing their agenda. Get us off the gold standard, get us on the petrodollar system, and then move forward with their agenda. And that is wars, taking control, establishing bases around the world, installing central banks, private central banks in all these different countries. Now, Trump, he has to undo all of this. He's not for globalism. He's a nationalist. And we know that the globalists, they used sanctions in the past to force countries into doing what they wanted. Now, Trump is doing something very, very interesting. He's using the same exact players to take everything that they set up and undo it. And they don't even know they're being used. Think about it. The world of international diplomacy is being turned inside out. They don't even know what side is up, what side is down anymore. Take North Korea, for instance. They had no clue what was going on. Take Syria, for instance, when they had Bolton out there saying that, the troops aren't leaving until Iran leaves, and then Trump made the announcement that the troops are leaving. These individuals, Trump made the announcement that the troops are leaving. These individuals that are in these positions, they're being used for a specific purpose. Think about this for a second. Countries right now, they are proceeding to de-dollarize and replace what the U.S. diplomacy calls internationalism with their own national self-interest. Sound familiar? Does it sound like something Trump is trying to do? Well, Trump actually wants this to happen because he's undoing everything the globalists have been doing. Populist nationalism is today's road to election victory in Europe and other countries, and they're following what Trump has done. Trump's agenda may really be to break up the American empire, the American empire, the central bank, the deep state empire. And he's going for the empire's most vital organs. He's dismantling the central bank dollar, removing the petrodollar, going after the central banks, and establishing some type of gold standard. So what have we been seeing happen here? Well, Germany and many other countries, they've been repatriating their gold. Other countries have been purchasing gold. And Q has been telling us that gold will bring down the Federal Reserve. Then we have Venezuela. Venezuela, they were desperate to spend its gold reserves to provide imports for its economy devastated by U.S. sanctions. Now, these U.S. sanctions were put on Venezuela way before Trump, and they were hurting the everyday person. So Venezuela directed the Bank of England to transfer some of its $11 billion in gold held in its vaults and those of other central banks in December of 2018. The U.S. officials are now trying to steer Venezuela's overseas assets to help Juan Guaido, to help bolster his chances of effectively taking control of the government. The $1.2 billion of gold is a big chunk of the $8 billion in foreign reserves held by the Venezuelan central bank. So Bolton and Pompeo are now sending the gold back to Venezuela, stopping the central banks from selling it. Think about what they were ordered to do. They were ordered to stop the central banks from selling the gold of Venezuela, and the gold is being sent back to Venezuela. Very interesting. Very interesting. Why would they care about that? Well, of course, they're going to give this to Juan Guaido, but think about what they're doing. They're countering what the central bank wanted to do. So the central bank officials in Caracas have been ordered to no longer try contacting the Bank of England. These central bankers have been told that the Bank of England staffers will not respond to them. So normally what the deep state does with these countries, they bleed them dry. They remove all the gold, and when I say remove it, they steal it. They have regime change. They make it very difficult for the people. Just take all the other countries, for example. Look at Lebanon, look at Libya, look at Iraq, look at Syria, look at Ukraine. Look at all these countries. I mean, if we go back in time to Ukraine, we remember when jets flew in, and they stole the gold from Ukraine. Here, we have the gold being returned to Venezuela. Trump is using Bolton and other players and the rest of the world to do exactly what he wants to do. Now, they think they're going to have this incredible regime change. They're going to be in control. This is what they've been wishing for a very long time, but this is not going to happen. This is a piece of the puzzle. Just like Syria, Iraq, Iran, Libya, Lebanon, to remove the petrodollar system. And we know for a long time that Russia, China, they created their own payment system. We know that Europe has created their own payment system. What do we see happening around the world right now? Decentralization. Remember, most of these countries, almost all, use the SWIFT system, central bank controlled. Now we have Russia, we have China, and Europe. They all have their own payment systems. Everything's being decentralized. The World Bank is changing. That individual decided to resign. Now Trump can put someone in there that he wants. The IMF is in trouble. They thought they were going to be the reserve currency of the world with maybe SDRs. That's what it was really set up to be. China most likely was going to have the gold, the manufacturing, and things like that. Eventually, IMF was going to produce the SDR, and countries on a higher level were going to use all of this. All of this is falling apart. So Trump has made moves on Venezuela, Iran, and Europe, China, the World Trade Organization, IMF, the Fed, and he stopped what was happening in the Middle East, where they were going to expand into Syria and pretty much control the Middle East, the petrodollar system, the petrodollar system. Everything right now is being reversed. If you look at all these different areas, the World Trade Organization, the IMF, the Fed, China, Europe, Iran, Venezuela, these are all the pieces that the deep state used to control. And now they are losing this control because Trump, the Patriots, they are in control. They're in control of the narrative, and they're going to control the way the economy looks and the world looks moving forward. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.